Transmutate.
Welcome back to the Titanium Hangout. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with another video. This time I want to talk to you about a new company, TransArt, which it doesn't seem like new companies are really new companies. But anyway, their take on Transmutate. They call it Strange Friend. Now, I got this at Show Z. You could get yours there too. I'm going to put a link down below. This is a really cool little figure. Doesn't transform, but does a lot of other cool things. We're going to get into all that, do a bunch of comparisons, show you what this can do, show you if it's worth it. Hint, I think it is. Coming up. All right, let's take a look at this box, and here it is. It looks all right. It's a nice looking box, and shows the figure on it. There's the side, there's the back. Strange Friend. But let's go ahead and have a look at what's inside, and it looks like this. You know, this is a lot like the vintage or the G1 or the first Transmutate figure, where it was kind of a build-a-figure, and it almost is the same sections, more or less, that you build. But we're going to build this thing, so let's go ahead and get into that. So here are all the parts and pieces, and so let's follow the instructions, and well, this is all they give you for instructions. That's really to get the lighting gimmick to work, so I'll show you that. Alright, so we're going to build this, I guess, just like the original, and so we have this piece. It would make sense to start with this torso, and when I like to transform things, I like to start with the legs. So we're going to plug this in. It looks like there's a notch right here, so you'd want to line that notch up so that the ratchet works. That's interesting. So line that notch up. There we go. Transmutate. That works. All right, let's get the arm in. I'm sure there's a notch to match up there. It's a little, a notch right there, and then, sorry about the camera's not picking that up that well. Anyway, so you got ratchets in this thing, and pistons and all kinds of cool stuff. And he's really, really tall. I don't feel any die cast in it at all, except for the, well, there's, I don't know if that's stainless steel. Is that stainless steel? The pistons? Friend. All right, now we gotta get the head. You have these pistons and you gotta get them into those holes there. So build a figure. I'm gonna pull the face off there and give it a little bit more of a solid push. There it goes. And since we're right here, I am going to show you, you have to take this chip out, which is kind of a pain. And on the back, you're going to have a little tab you pull out so that it lights back up. Then you slide it right back in here. And I like to lift up on this a bit. And then just be real careful not to mess up any of the circuitry. Put your face back on. And we have one more thing that we have to do. We need to connect these here. So connect it right there into that hole. The other side will be easier to see. And then there's it's like a ball peg that you plug in. Some assembly required. All assembly required, huh? Yeah, there we go. There we have our Transmutate. Now this is a pretty big figure. I think it's almost 12 inches tall. And so it's gonna really take up a lot of your display, height-wise. But we're gonna show it with some other characters, but I think it's really cool. It matches the cartoon perfectly. This guy matches the cartoon just right, and it's awesome. I think that the vintage one is going for like $200. So if you want to get a vintage one, it's like $200 and it's half the size. And so I think that one was okay, but this is way better. I really like it. I mean, it feels light, feels kind of lightweight, but it doesn't feel cheap like I'm gonna break it. I don't feel at all. In fact, the ratchets feel really good. So we're gonna get into articulation here in a little bit. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get into some head swaps. So the head he has right now is just his normal, peaceful, happy head. I'm happy. So we're gonna switch that one out with his curious wonder face. Oh, he's curious. This was an interesting character too, because it's basically one of those ball pegs popped out, like a newborn kind of entity. And he made a couple of good friends. Now this is the face when he has his like screeching power, where, and yeah, that looks good. I just rewatched the episode before, well, while I was waiting for this scene to come in, because it's like I remembered him, but it's funny because I didn't remember everything about him, and I'm gonna show you a feature. He was maybe carrying Silverbolt, I think, what it was, and he has a little jetpack, and I was like, I wonder if they incorporate the jetpack. So this little flap flips up. Kind of like his little jetpack. That's exactly where his jetpack went. But there's really no detail or paint or anything in there to look like it's other than the fact the flap exists. And I was looking around, I was like, they should have included some little something you could plug in there maybe, but they didn't. So cool that they included this. That is awesome. I'm happy they did it, because out of the whole show, this is really the only main feature that he would have other than his faces and his light up gimmick. This light up gimmick here. Which, let's see it without light. Everyone complains about lighting until you want to see his eyes in the dark, in the lighting. This is perfect. Let's do a little articulation with this guy, because he's got quite a bit, so it's interesting. His neck can go all the way back, so he can look up, like an extreme up, and then he can go all the way down for an extreme down. Very interesting, and I think that's exactly the way the character was in the show. Looking at the arm, you don't have much out on the shoulder, but you do have a ratcheted all the way around, which is nice, and it feels good. It feels like a soft ratchet, sounds like a really tough ratchet. Then elbow, more than a 90, which is great. No, there's no bicep swivel to it. And then his hands can articulate all the way around. You have 3 fingers. The thumb is not movable, but you have two joints on each of these other 2 fingers. So like he's like an alien kind of dude, but you can get some great poses that really match the cartoon. His waist is strange. You have all kinds of articulation, front and back, because of the way you have 2 joints here, and then you have these pistons. And it really does work. It works really well. Not only for the look and the aesthetic, for it to hold its pose. It's like 3-way hold on there. The only problem I'm really having is this thing's popping out, which once you pose it and get it in its pose, it's not a big deal. But that just pops out of the ball socket. Okay. But you don't have, so I guess you could say you have an ab crunch, so to speak. But, all right, so it goes all the way forward, all the way back. No thigh swivel. You can do crazy stuff with this. We fold them up into whatever. But you have, well, that's more than the knee joint on MP44. And you got a piston down here in the foot. And looking at it, I think the whole thing's painted. I don't know if this is just like a teal green plastic. No rocker. But maybe it's just the plastic and not painted, but it has kind of a sheen to it, so I like that. Looks good. I mean, we got more stuff coming from this company, so I like it. All right, so let's go ahead and get some comparisons with this guy. So this is going to be my new Beast Force shelf, I guess. And this here is the Zing. Oh, I think I'm saying it wrong. The JX, the JX version of that Megatron. Now, this is an unofficial third party, and size, I mean, we could discuss whether it was too big or maybe not big enough, or the same size, the right size, or whatever. But this guy here it's like 11.5 inches tall and looks pretty big compared to this. Compared to this guy, he's not as tall. But I think this is the right scale for Masterpiece. When I get the actual Megatron, we'll see a little bit better. And really, you didn't see him interact with Megatron side by side as much as you saw with a couple of the other characters, which we don't have Masterpiece representations of them yet. But looking at that, I think that looks right. That looks good. You can see how tall he is, how big he is. We're going to do a few more comparisons. Here he is next to Dinobot, of course, and he is a little taller than Dinobot when he stood all the way up. When he stood all the way up, he's really skinny, and yeah, that's just kind of the character design that they went with. The design of the character anyway. If he would stand all the way up, he would be real skinny like this. And he is taller than the rest of them, so I don't know. I actually kind of thought he'd be a little taller, when you make him stand all the way up, but I still like it. I think it scales well. Here is with Big Bot and Cheetor. So, yeah, that looks good. That looks about the size he should be. I can live with that. I mean, what do you guys think? Let's look at him kind of a side view here. Standing straight up. Yeah, I think it's going to look really good in this display, but we need more characters that would kind of make that scene a whole lot better. So this is TransArt's first offering, and it is a really good representation of Transmutate character. Definitely something for $50 to put on your shelf and deck out a Beast Wars shelf. If you're a Beast Wars fan, this is a great novelty. Kind of a lot like getting an Autobot Spike, and I think we need more stuff like this. More cool stuff that's not really ridiculous expensive, not really complicated, and it just kind of adds to your scene, adds to your display, and I think that's what this does, and it does it well. Has a couple of downsides to it, although I'm going to get to the downsides in a second, but the upside to it, of course, is the look, the aesthetic. It nails it. It works. The downside is I wish it would have had some die cast. It doesn't feel like it's going to break or it's bad quality, but it is light. It was a lot lighter than I expected, and I would like a little more die cast in it. Now, it does have a lot of metal for all the pistons and all that, so there's that. Great ratchets. It can hold the pose. And the other downside is one of these back tubes pops out once in a while, which is absolutely no big deal. You can get this at Shows. I've linked down below. Like, subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.
Friend.